Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Kathy Schick, a project manager with the National Center for College and Career Transitions, or NC3T. The purpose of this webinar is to bring like-minded groups together in order to learn from one another. Our speakers today will share some of their successes and the challenges they faced when they've brought multiple stakeholders together to increase student opportunity and achievement for all learners in their community. This webinar was organized for the Center of Excellence in Leadership of Learning, or CEL, at the University of Indianapolis, a leading convener for dynamic and innovative education change throughout Indiana. By the way, I should probably tell you right now, since you can't read all this at this moment, we will be sending out a link to the recording of this webinar and this PowerPoint, so you can read a little more about CEL at that time. Okay, Candace, thanks. NC3T offers technical assistance and coaching to state departments of education, individual schools, community and workforce organizations who intend to develop career pathway systems that encompass the components you see in our framework right now. In recent years, NC3T has supported the work of Erie Together in Pennsylvania. Today's conversation with members of Erie Together speaks to the employer and community engagement component of our framework. NC3T is a mission-driven organization who believes that every learner should have a dream and a plan, and with that in place, every community will have a capable, ready workforce. We appreciate so much that Mary Beulah and Aldo Jackson are taking time to speak with us today in between their busy meetings and days. Let me take a moment to tell you a little bit about each of them. In 2012, Mary Beulah was named facilitator for Erie Together, a countywide collective impact movement working to prevent and reduce poverty and make the Erie region a community of opportunity where everyone can learn, work, and thrive. Much of Erie Together's efforts focus on helping more children become successful adults through early childhood readiness and success, supporting children in middle school, and preparing students for life after high school. Through Erie Together, Mary is convening and facilitating the work of the Erie County Career Pathways Alliance, which is a partnership between education and business to help students become college, career, and life ready. Mary came to her position with years of leadership experience, as well as a master's degree from the University of Pittsburgh School of Public and International Affairs. Since 1997, Dr. Aldo Jackson has been director of the Erie County Technical School, a regional career and tech center serving 11 school districts in Erie County. The school also provides adult education programs. In 2010, ECTS was selected as one of the first 5 Pennsylvania CTE Best Practices Initiative sites. Dr. Jackson, who holds a PhD in vocational education from Penn State, is also active in the community. Currently, he is on the board of directors for the Northwest PA Workforce Development Board. Before I turn the presentation over to Mary and Aldo, I'd like to ask that participants enter their questions on the GoToWebinar panel. Instead of us interjecting questions throughout the presentation, we'll spend the last 15 minutes or so responding to questions. So Mary and Aldo, thank you so much. Welcome, and we're very excited to hear what you have to share. I know a little bit about Erie Together, and I'm always so impressed. So I'm anxious myself to learn more. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Before we get into the heart of what we're really here to talk about today, which is Erie County's development of a countywide career pathway system, we thought it was really important to give you a little background on Erie Together and what this movement is. And so Erie Together has been in place now for about 9 years. It was founded through a partnership of Mercyhurst University, the Greater Erie Community Action Committee, and United Way of Erie County. The role of Erie Together is to act as a countywide collective impact movement to prevent and reduce poverty. The three partner organizations, Mercyhurst, GCAC, and United Way of Erie County, serve as the backbone for this countywide collective impact movement. And when these partners were first getting together to form Erie Together, one of the first things they did was they worked with a national consultant to find ways to take input from the entire community around what success would look like for this anti-poverty initiative. So they convened a series of focus groups, talked to about 700 or so people, and developed this aspiration statement that you see now. If we are to be successful as an anti-poverty movement, this will be one where people are working together differently to make the Erie region a community of opportunity where everyone can learn, work, and thrive. So if you're not familiar with collective impact, this slide is a very good way to help you think about how collective impact works. If you look at the target and consider that to be one of the priorities that we're focused on, or one of the big community challenges that our community is trying to address, and then you look at all of the boxes above and below that and think of those as individual organizations and schools and businesses and educational institutions that are all doing good work within their particular organization. What Erie Together does and what collective impact does is it helps align all of those efforts and resources and the expertise to work together to achieve these important community priorities and objectives. That's collective impact. That's the kind of movement that Erie Together is. So by way of some very broad background around what Erie Together's overarching objectives are, we can really bucket those into the three areas of our aspiration statement. I told you Erie Together is about working together to make the Erie region a community where everyone can learn, work, and thrive. So with respect to learn, we are focused on helping more children become successful adults. With respect to work, we want more Erie residents to have family-sustaining employment, and with respect to thrive, we want more Erie County families to be able to meet their basic needs. And then we can really drill down into those broader objectives and take a look at these things from a more granular perspective. So you can see in our learn area, we have a number of more specific objectives we're trying to reach. And when you get about halfway through there, you'll see the ones that really relate to what this idea of creating career pathways addresses. So we are very interested in increasing career awareness, exploration, and preparation among local students. We want our students to be civically engaged so they can be responsible citizens, and we want to make sure that more students are graduating high school on time with a plan, prepared for the next step. Then when you look in our work area, obviously we want a better prepared local workforce, and we want students to be able to connect with the jobs that we have right here in the community. So now let's get into the meat of what we are doing through the Erie County Career Pathways Alliance and how this was formed. In early 2016, Dr. Aldo Jackson, who is on the webinar with us today, and a local superintendent approached the National Center for College and Career Transitions and invited them into a meeting where they invited all kinds of community stakeholders here in Erie County. That included local school districts, workforce development providers, community organizations that have some sort of workforce or economic development focus, and they brought them to the meeting to hear from Hans Meter about the creation of career pathways and what the impact of that can be on a community and on students and on the education and workforce development arena. During that meeting, Hans gave a great presentation around how you create pathway systems. Then we asked the school districts if they were interested in pursuing this further going forward, and they did express interest in doing that. At that time, because many people in the room are familiar with the way Erie Together works and its collective impact process and the kinds of efforts that it had already been engaged in the community and the relationships it had already built, Erie Together was asked to facilitate that work, and the National Center for College and Career Transitions offered technical assistance. As we were setting this up, we invited all Erie County school districts to participate. So there are 13 school districts in our county. At the onset, we had 10 of 13 agree to participate, and we recently picked up an 11th. The 12th school district is very far ahead in this idea of career pathways development, so we weren't really expecting that they would jump on board at this early stage in the game. We think that there may be an opportunity to work with them as things progress, and then the 13th district has not yet come on board. In addition to the school districts, we invited obviously the Erie County Technical School, Career Street, which is our countywide career exploration project that connects businesses with schools to provide career exploration opportunities for students. We invited the Erie Regional Manufacturer Partnership and our Workforce Development Board to participate. They've been meeting roughly monthly since April of 2016 to do this groundwork and to get things underway to create this career pathway system. We've had very good engagement by the districts and all of the stakeholders that we've engaged so far. At the onset, we developed a number of goals that we felt were important as we looked at creating this system to think about, what would success look like to us in the coming months and the coming years. And these are the goals that we felt were most important. Obviously, we wanted to develop an effective career pathway system within the local school districts with robust, relevant core and elective courses and co-curricular activities. We want our students and families to be better informed and engaged, so students are making the right decisions about their futures based on their interests and their aptitudes and the skills that they have, and so that they can be taking the right courses to prepare them for their future careers. We wanted to create a more streamlined way for business and industry to advise districts to help prepare students for future careers, advising them on industry trends and job opportunities and earning potential and all those kinds of things that should play a part in a student's decision about what they want to do in their future. We also wanted to find a way to create greater connections between school districts and post-secondary institutions. Some of our districts had good connections, some of them were spottier in terms of not having the right contacts or not being able to make the right connections that could help advance this work from secondary to post-secondary, and so we wanted to create stronger connections there. And then finally, we are all working to better prepare the local workforce and have a stronger local economy here. So when we talk about this work, we like to share a school district's perspective before they got engaged in this effort, and then we'll talk about how it's impacted them after. So Northwestern School District is one of those districts that likes to talk about how things were before and how they're progressing now. So when you talk with the curriculum director there, she would take a look at this situation and she would say, before we entered into the Erie County Career Pathways Alliance, we took a look at our courses. We felt we were offering great courses, but we still had questions. Do the courses that we offer really align with local jobs? Are the students as well prepared as they can be for post-secondary opportunities? How do the courses that we're offering support specific careers either here or outside of our community? And really importantly, what are other districts doing? Because up to the point where we had created this alliance, the school districts weren't really having opportunities to talk with each other about these kinds of things and to learn from each other about these kinds of things and to be able to implement best practices from the other districts that they may have not ever thought of. And so that's been a really important part of this process. As we progressed, we took sort of an approach at, okay, what will success look like for us in the first 18 months and then beyond? And so we knew very early on it was important for us to develop a definition of college, career, and life readiness that could be considered and adopted and built into all of the school district's Chapter 339 plans. That was one of the first things that we tackled. And you can see on this slide that our definition in Erie County of college, career, and life readiness is that individuals possess the knowledge and skills necessary to succeed in life after high school and to thrive in their community. The next thing we did was we inventoried all the pathways related activity in each district. That was a tremendous undertaking, but it was very, very valuable, because then each district could see side by side what their counterparts across the county were doing, could learn from each other, and they could really take a look at their own district and say, okay, where do I fall in this whole scale of implementation of pathways within my district? It was a very eye-opening exercise. And then once that took place, we started looking at the state's 5 state-designated career pathways, and we gained commitment from each of the districts to organize and communicate their courses and their activity around each of those 5 state-designated career pathways. So now we were starting to have a real foundation for a solid plan in place. To this point, we've made some really good progress. As I said, we started meeting in April of 2016. We have definitely made stronger connections between districts and each other, right? And we are now moving to make stronger connections between districts and post-secondary education and training providers. And so we are expanding our current leadership team to include a number of post-secondary providers that exist in the region. And we are also in the process of forming our first industry advisory group, which our group determined should be the Engineering and Industrial Technology Advisory Group. We will convene the first meeting of that group with the expanded leadership team in late October. And finally, a very important thing that we did was we borrowed some work that had been done in the central part of the state around a very vibrant course catalog that can now be used by all of the districts across our county simply by rebranding it for their district and adding their own courses in the place of other districts' courses. And let me show you an example of that. So this is the engineering and industrial technology pathway that we have included in the course catalog. So you can see here that there's a column about what students' interests are, what their skills are, and what they enjoy. And if they answer yes to those questions, then below you can see what these sample careers are that they may want to explore. You can also see here the type of education that they should be pursuing if they want to secure these particular careers. So this is a really powerful way to help students and families take a look at what their options are for their future based on where their interests and their aptitudes and the things they enjoy fall, to think more strategically about their future. So this is an example then of how one of the school districts organized its courses around the engineering and industrial technology pathway. So the top part of this chart shows the grades 9, 10, and 11, and 12 core courses in English, Science, Social Studies, and Math. And then below this, you see what the pathway electives are. And you see here that other electives are available, and they could see those further on in the course catalog. So what happens here is, through this course catalog that our school districts developed, that has all kinds of very valuable and relevant information about career pathways and the importance of career pathways, and then helps students take a look at each of the 5 state designated career pathways, starting with engineering and industrial technologies I just showed you. The districts can now just simply replace these courses with the courses they offer within their districts and share that with families and students so they can be better prepared in their planning. What this exercise also allowed our districts to do is take a look particularly at their electives and determine where they may have gaps in terms of their offerings. So for this particular engineering and industrial technology pathway, Northwestern may have noticed that they were missing some electives that were really important in terms of helping to prepare students, and then they could make those adjustments and develop their course or learn from other districts about courses that they're using to fill those gaps, and then they can make hiring decisions based on that as well. So when you talk with Northwestern school districts, what you learn from them is now they are very happy and feel much better prepared because they have access to this comprehensive pathway guide, this course catalog that reflects current PA Department of Education career pathways and clusters. It also immediately helped them balance their course offerings, as I just mentioned to you. And then it's helping them tremendously in terms of communicating with their families and the students, particularly at the 8th grade level, obviously, because these students now need to make decisions about how they're going to schedule in high school. Dr. Jackson, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that's a really comprehensive overview, Mary.
Okay. So, in talking with the districts then, as they're moving forward, I just simply asked them, what are the other impacts that you believe bringing together this pathway system and developing this as far as we can possibly take it, what are the impacts that it will have on your districts besides what we just already talked about? They said clearly, as we just saw, this will impact curriculum decisions in their course offerings. It will help them understand where and when they can introduce industry credentials in the schools and what type of industry credentials those should be. It will create opportunities for additional field experiences. It will help fill gaps in student career and college portfolios. They, to this point, had only been doing that kind of work at certain grade levels, and this will help fill those portfolios in. It will provide greater strategic thinking around what the right professional development for their teachers are. It will impact other district programmatic changes, and it will help the districts make better decisions to help businesses. So to really wrap up, this sort of groundwork, then we needed to think about, okay, we've done some fundamental things. We've done the inventory of pathways work that was existing in the schools. We've developed the definition of college, career, and life readiness. We have looked at what other schools are doing. We've developed our course catalog. We're making this available to all districts in the county. We are now starting to form our first industry advisory group around engineering and industrial technology, and we're planning to kick that off in the end of October. What else do we need to do in 2017-18 that will help us feel like we're making strong progress and that we're successful in this coming year? And what we decided here was that 8 of 10, now 8 of 11 participating districts will have developed at least one pathway by June of 2018. And again, we're focusing on engineering and industrial technology first, and that will be reflected through their course catalog and their student scheduling. The second goal here is that we will have 3 of 5 planned industry advisory groups in place. So engineering and industrial technology first, science and health will be next, and business, finance, and information technology will be third. We want to have that done by June of 2018. And we chose those 3 because of our local economy and the opportunities that we have here for the success of our students and for the ability to get jobs here. So that's why we went with those 3 first. And then by June 30th of 2018, we want 100% of students from our participating districts to complete some career planning activity, whether that be an interest inventory or a written career plan or whatever that might look like by the end of the 8th grade year. So we have these goals in place, and now we've created an entire strategic plan around these goals that we will be working over the course of the next year. Dr. Jackson, anything you'd like to add to that?
Mary, I think the thing that really makes the Pathways Alliance successful is the interest and the energy of the school districts. This is not something they typically buy into, but they have. And then the facilitation services kind of really is what makes, creates the energy behind the work being accomplished by the school districts here.
Mm-hmm.
This is Kathy. If you don't mind, I'll jump in with some questions. That was a great overview, Mary. Really, really interesting, and I just very well organized. Thank you. I know it's a big, messy thing to put into such a brief overview. You did a great job.
Thank you.
But Aldo, this first question might involve you as the director of the Career and Technical Center. Do you anticipate that this initiative will increase enrollment in high-demand, high-skill programs at your school, the Career and Technical High School?
We really hope it does. I mean, we're not counting on it to be an enrollment driver for us, but if kids and families are making better informed decisions about careers and they're aligning their coursework to support that, then the local CTC is bound to see some changes in the number of students and the quality of students that attend. So we're very supportive of the Pathways work. We're kind of on the sidelines to a certain degree. I mean, most of the work belongs to the districts, and so they're kind of the ones carrying the ball.
Right, and I should just mention for our Indiana listeners, if you are not aware, in Pennsylvania, the most common model of delivery for career and tech ed in high schools is that students attend their home high school for half of the day and then go to the Career and Tech Center for the other half of the day. We do have some comprehensive high schools where they go all day, but so we have Career and Tech Centers like Dr. Jackson's who offer great programs that are approved by the state. And then we do have high schools that also have some of their own career and tech programs that are approved by the state, usually those that need less equipment. So, so the pathways are offered at the sending schools, but students may still also choose to go to the Career and Tech Center for half of the day. Let's see, let me ask, thank you for that question. What, if any, has been the collaboration, or what has it looked like with local workforce development and American Job Centers?
The Workforce Development Board has been actively engaged in this work. I don't know what the American Job Centers is. Is that like the Pennsylvania Career Links?
That's a good question. I'm not sure either. Melissa, if you could just verify what American Job Centers is, that would help Mary. But for now, what did your WIB, your Workforce Development Board, what was their level of involvement, or how did they collaborate in this work specifically?
The director of the Workforce Development Board serves on this smaller leadership team and is committed to continue that involvement as we expand the leadership team to include additional post-secondary providers, business organizations like the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership, the local Manufacturers and Business Association, and others. The intermediate unit will soon be coming on to the expanded leadership team as well. And so the director of the Workforce Development Board sits at the table, provides her input, tries to connect the dots between what we're doing and what is happening elsewhere in the multi-county region that they represent, so that they can share information back and forth to help inform the process. So they're fully engaged. Dr. Jackson, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I will add that workforce development boards across the country have a responsibility to develop career pathways. Typically, those are at the post-secondary or the employer level. And so what you really have going on is workforce development board developing pathways at that level, and then the school districts are just one step below that, developing pathways for high school students. So it's a nice mesh of work being done by the Workforce Development Board that's kind of supported by the efforts of the school districts.
And Melissa, thank you for clarifying. Melissa said that is, she was referring to what is considered a one-stop center.
Right.
That model is not really in Pennsylvania as far as I know, is it?
Well, I think that the closest thing we would have to that is the Pennsylvania Career Link. And the Career Link is very closely tied to the Workforce Development Board. And so I feel as though we have the right representation in the room to represent that interest. Dr. Jackson, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the PA Career Link is Pennsylvania's version of the One Stop Center.
Okay.
In the national legislation. So it's probably very similar to the AJC, American Job Center.
Thank you. Besides the questionnaire you showed us, Mary, how do you accomplish interest and aptitude and attitude maybe assessment?
the districts are doing that, and they're actually in the process now of determining which instruments they would like to use. There are some things in place that they've been using, their career cruising software, or the WIN learning system. I don't know if the listeners may be familiar with that, but right now, as part of their strategic plan moving forward, they want to make decisions about what are the right assessment tools that they would like to use to best develop an understanding of what their students' interests and aptitudes are, so that they can obviously help direct them in this career pathways work. Dr. Jackson, anything more to that one?
Just that there are 7 districts that have done a collaborative purchase on the WIN Learning, which has a pretty extensive career assessment piece in it. So there is some unity there.
Before I pose this next question, I have to apologize to Chad, because Chad, oh, and you're welcome. Melissa said thank you. Chad, I have one of your questions, and I'm going to state that right now. But the other one that I think you sent, if you sent a second one, I think I accidentally deleted it. So please resend it. But this is Chad's question. What pathway development work do you foresee for younger students, primary and middle levels?
I'll start with this. The work that we're doing at this point with this group is focused on the high school, and in some cases a little bit in the middle school level. But Erie is very lucky because we, a few years ago, developed what is known as Career Street, which I mentioned in the presentation, which is a countywide career exploration initiative that provides opportunities for students in grades K through 12. So Career Street is a really important player in this, that is connecting businesses with the schools to impact students in age-appropriate kinds of ways. So while our pathways development work is happening primarily at the high school level right now, our career awareness and exploration and preparation work, primarily through Career Street, is happening in the earliest of ages, grades K all the way through 12th grade. Dr. Jackson?
The other thing that Pennsylvania has, along with its academic standards in math and science and English, they have something called Career Education and Work Standards, and those are also K-12. So many of the districts are developing plans that revolve around those state-mandated career education and work standards, and Career Street plays a big role in helping districts meet those state standards.
I have to say to the listeners, this is Kathy, if you are not familiar with Career Street and want to learn more, please go to their website. It is a really fantastic platform. I am a former teacher, and I wish I had something like Career Street available to me when I was teaching. It's a web-based platform that businesses sign up and say, here's what we can offer to teachers at different grade levels in work-based learning. And then teachers can go on and say, I'm looking for this, and I can find a business that's willing to offer it. So it's a really great collaborative website. So question, pathways and programs of study have been around for a while. What dynamics do you see now that will make this successful compared with past decades? And I'm going to add to that, maybe if either of you want to speak to ESSA and maybe how ESSA could be supporting this work, at least here in Pennsylvania with our Future Ready PA.
Aldo, do you want to take this one?
I think I could do everything but the ESSA.
Okay.
I think for some reason, I'm not exactly certain what it is, but school districts have taken a profound interest in making sure that kids are prepped for college or career readiness. And I mean, they've always done a really marvelous job with the college prep. The interest is new in the career prep. And I think the willingness of business and industry to step up and work closely with schools to make sure that, you know, what they're delivering in the middle schools and the high schools and at the current tech centers aligns to what the local workforce needs. And so that's the unique thing that I see going on here in Erie County, is that educators and the business community really are kind of focused around some key initiatives like Career Street, like the pathways, and other things happening in our community. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I think it's pretty close.
Sure. And again, this is Kathy. I know there are some people on this call who know much more than I do. I'm looking at you, Dan Richards. So if you want to jump in, let us know. We'll unmute you. But it's my understanding that the Pennsylvania plan that was submitted to for ESSA, Every Student Succeed Acts, which is replacing No Child Left Behind, will have more of an emphasis on career readiness, career awareness. And so a lot of this overlaps nicely with what schools really do need to do as policy. Mary mentioned Chapter 339. That's a policy piece here in Pennsylvania that school districts must have a counseling plan that has career piece in it. Okay, let me see. Yes, they want the website address for Career Street. So can we provide that? Is it careerstreet.org?
It's www.careerstreeterie.org.
Okay, great. careerstreeterie.org. Getting some thanks. Mary, I just have to ask, because I think it's kind of funny. Are you in your playground?
Oh, you can hear it. So I'm sorry. I work at United Way of Erie County, and we share office space with a daycare center that is downstairs, and the playground is right outside my window.
Well, it sounds joyful. The mother in me could hear a child. I could hear it from across the airwaves. Okay, are there any schools partnered with or embedded in actual companies doing real-time work beyond internships, especially tech and manufacturing sectors? Any schools partnered with or embedded in companies doing real work?
Aldo, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any school districts that are working with an employer in a way that embeds the school in the company. I know there's partnerships between local companies and local school districts. Erie is kind of a community, has a bunch of smaller communities, and so they kind of work that way. But in terms of right in the company, I'm not aware of anything along those lines.
Maybe that's to come. Any other questions? I think we've answered, we had a couple of questions that were similar, so I grouped them together, but any other questions? We'll take just another minute. This is great information. A lot of appreciation being expressed, Aldo and Mary.
Could I just add
Please
one thing? When I look at this process that we embarked on, about a year and a half ago now, there are some things that really resonate with me about what has made this successful and what has kept the stakeholders coming back to the table and committing to the kinds of things that we want to accomplish here. And so they really revolve around that whole idea of a collective impact approach to this. Collective impact has a number of key sort of elements that make it work, and one of those is obviously a common agenda. So the people that we have around the table are all working toward developing that career pathways system, and they know what they need to do within their own piece of this system, and so that sort of keeps us together. That's the glue that sort of holds us, as we're all working towards the same thing. We've set both short-term and long-term goals, and so we can monitor the kinds of things that we're doing and make sure that we're making progress over this time. The districts and the other stakeholders are really getting things out of this, and so there are mutually reinforcing activities that are taking place that are really, again, keeping the interest of the stakeholders that are engaged in this. We have a lot of communication among this group, among the districts, in our meetings, outside of our meetings, among the districts with other stakeholders, and then the role that the facilitator plays in terms of making sure that we are consistently keeping them on track and moving them forward and communicating with them about activity that maybe a certain subcommittee might be doing that the full group may not be aware of, so they know that even if they may not be part of this particular discussion, there's still progress being made. And then finally, the idea that you have a backbone that can support this and keep the work moving forward, that facilitation role that in this case Erie Together plays. I think those are all things that are really helping us stay on track and continue to move forward and to continue to keep having people come back and want to be part of this.
That's great. Mary, piggybacking off of that, we have two more questions here. One is about career ready standards and how they're measured, but just piggybacking off of what you said, another question is the structure of the organization. Is your time as the facilitator 100% dedicated to this work, or is this one hat you wear?
This is one hat that I wear. I have a number of projects that I'm engaged in and that I'm leading in the community, and I showed you really those more granular objectives that we are working on, and I have projects associated with many of those. So this is one piece of my comprehensive body of work.
And very briefly, what accountability measures are in place for career ready standards mandates?
Aldo, do you want to take this one?
I'm focusing on the accountability measures piece. I'm not sure what they mean by that. There's some targets for school districts, primarily a state mandated occupational test for CTE students, and the students acquiring industry credentials. I'm not sure I'm answering the question, but those are the two things that school districts are measured on in terms of their career readiness.
And other than that, then school districts would also have their own indicators, right, Aldo? I mean,
academic focused attendance, right. Graduation rates, things like that, right?
Right. Just before I wrap up completely, yes, the slides will be available. They will be sent to you in an email, so you'll have a link to this presentation as well as the slides. We certainly welcome you or encourage you to use this with other stakeholders. Mary and Aldo, the information you shared was so wonderfully provided and organized. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. And Candace, thank you for helping us with all of the behind the scenes work. Again, just one last thing. Mary and Aldo, you're getting a lot of praise and gratitude. Thank you, everyone. This concludes the webinar. Have a great day.